Hey everyone, I'm Asha. Welcome to the Girl Talk HQ weekly wrap up. Okay, so today's video is all about breaking down the definition of feminism. Why? It kind of seems redundant, I know, but there are certain celebrities and pop stars out there today who are a little bit confused and they're putting these messages out into the world and confusing all their fans. So I just want to break it down and say that being a feminist doesn't mean you hate men and it doesn't mean you burn your bra. I'm a feminist and I'm wearing a bra right now, you guys. Nigerian author and activist Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, she's the person who's quoted on Beyonce's Flawless track. She gave a really great TED talk not too long ago, and this was her definition of feminist, which I think everybody needs to adopt right now. Being a feminist means you believe in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes. There, done, boom. How easy is that? I've got a bone to pick with actress Shailene Woodley. You wanna know why? Because I'm a huge fan of her. She's always talking about strong female characters and representations of strong women on screen. But recently, she did an interview with Time magazine and she was asked if she's a feminist and she said no. And the reason why she said no was because she apparently likes men and doesn't want to trample on men to be a strong woman. Shailene, just to let you know, I think you're a little bit confused about what feminism actually means. There's so many other people that think like her too. Katy Perry is another celebrity who won't ever admit that she's a feminist, doesn't like calling herself a feminist because for some reason they think it's gonna make them seem like man-haters, lesbians, not likable at all, but I'm here to tell you guys, being a feminist is awesome and it's important too. So I know there's so many negative connotations and definitions of feminism out there today, but when it comes down to it, it's all about equality between men and women. In fact, I remember blogging about an interview that Amy Poehler did with Elle magazine a few months ago, and she made a really awesome statement saying, how can any woman not want to be a feminist? Because there are women around the world literally fighting for their lives, fighting for the right just to be seen and heard. So when I hear that, I'm like, for sure, I'm a feminist. And I think it's important that celebrities, especially young celebrities like Katy Perry and Shailene Woodley, that they understand what feminism is and why it's important. I mean, if it weren't for feminists back in the 1800s, back then it was known as the women's rights movement, but that was the first incarnation of feminism. If it wasn't for those feminists, they wouldn't be able to vote, they wouldn't be able to work, they wouldn't be able to wear skimpy outfits in public. All these kind of freedoms that we're allowed to have as women now are thanks to feminism and feminists. There's already been such a segregation of the genders that we're trying to bridge that gap and say, hey, we're just as equal, we're just as important, let's come alongside each other and just be awesome together. Most of my generation, the millennials, have grown up knowing that we can do whatever we want as girls, and that's cool, but there are other women around the world in other countries and other regions where equality is just an unheard of thing. A country that I want to talk about, for example, is Tunisia. It's a North African country, in case you didn't know. So they got independence in 1956 from France, and when they got independence, they had something pretty monumental in their government infrastructure, and it basically enforced laws for marriage between men and women. Men had to be a minimum age of 18 to get married, and women had to be a minimum age of 15. I'm not sure why it was 15, but anyway, that was the law that they put in place, and they basically banned forced marriage. Now, at that time, in the 1950s, in a mainly Muslim country, that was a pretty feminist statement, and a lot of people are saying that even today, back in 1956, like Tunisia, go feminism. Just a couple of months ago in February this year, they just brought about a new constitution, and it was a pretty groundbreaking constitution. Here's why. Because for the first time in any Arab country, they've included a women's rights clause and an equal rights clause. Women now are able to become elected leaders in their parliamentary system. They're obviously allowed to vote. The marriage age is still in force, so no one can force them to get married. And there's a few other things that are written into the Constitution which basically gives women equal status as men in public life, which you think would be a no-brainer, but believe me, there are a lot of countries where women can't drive, women can't vote. Saudi Arabia is one of those countries. By comparison, America has yet to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment into the Constitution. What that means is there's no equal rights in the American Constitution. So to hear that Tunisia, being the first Arab country in the world to include women's rights into its new constitution, that blows my mind. So on the flip side, it makes me think this is why feminism is important, because barriers are broken down, women are elevated, not at the expense of men, but to be able to come alongside men and to be able to live a public life and say, hey, we're equal. In countries where there is no equality, feminism is literally a matter of life and death. So that's why I'm a fan of feminism. I want to encourage all the men and women out there who currently don't like feminism or are confused about what it might mean, what it stands for, do a little bit more research, because there's so many things that get misconstrued by the media. Clearly in Shailene's interview, she just completely denigrated the whole feminist movement by that statement. It's showing that she's a little bit ignorant. Now, if you want to read more about Tunisia's new constitution, I've put the link below. If you want to read the interview with Amy Polo where she talks about feminism being a no-brainer, I've also put the link below. And if you're a feminist out there looking for other amazing, supportive, positive content, just go to girltalkhq.com, because that's what the website is all about. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because every week I'll be bringing you updates and topics and discussions that are just on my mind and that I think are important to the feminist community. See you next time.